they're newer to the platform. I'm just curious.
That's a really good idea. That also reminds me of like Airbnb Superhost. Like we could have super walkers that are like really, really vetted and highly rated. So yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah. Just to add off to that, we kept hearing that this is all about like Uber for dog walking, but when you even think back to the Uber experience, they're still providing you a choice to choose between the different kind of cars that they have based on the price that each of the cars would have or what kind of comfort level would you have. So even though they kept referring to that Rover or bag is like Uber for dog walking, without actually giving any choice to the process. I just wanted to reiterate on that these services also do provide that choice to the users.
Yeah, and to follow up with Nicole, I think that's where the reviews and star ratings really kind of like, we wanted people to be able to sort those because people wanted to say, you know, even though I'm getting these recommendations, I want to look at the top rated reviews. I mean, that stood out in our research, and so that's where we wanted to give users the option. So it's not quite what you're asking, but it is sort of related in like a little bit of a ranking system.
Oh, I have a question. You get to ask first. Oh, they're going to let me ask. What do you think will be the hardest one of your, I counted 4 recommendations. Is that about right? 4. Hardest for Rover to adopt and why?
Well, I have some thoughts about it. I mean, overall, I think the control aspect of letting dog owners control the experience, just overall, I mean, I think that's where most of our recommendations fit, would be the hardest. So I think it's almost ends up being kind of like a two-way match. So it would sort of be changing some of our recommendations are changing their business plan.
Yeah, just to follow up to that, I think like there's a big spectrum that we're talking about here. Rover is at like one extreme of the spectrum where you have no choice whatsoever. We are not suggesting where users have everything in control and it literally becomes like from an assignment model to a browse model. So I think the challenge would be to find the middle ground, which kind of keeps the users in control to some extent, but also makes it really fast for them to make their decisions ASAP and book the walks very quickly, which is what the Rover now is trying to do. So I think just finding that right sweet spot in between would be the challenge for me.
Did I understand you correctly to say that they don't reveal the sitter ratings until after you booked?
Yeah.
Right, that's correct.
Why do you suppose that is?
Because you aren't, so when you're submitting your walk request, in the assignment model, you just don't know who you're going to get assigned to until after you submit that request and they match you with someone. So just all of that information about who the walker is and their reviews and just all the kinds of services they provide, you just don't get that until you're actually matched with them.
That's Rover too. They do the same thing.
Yeah. So we actually found, we talked to a lot of users actually who have used Wagon Rover that say that when they get assigned somebody and then they go through their reviews and they end up not liking that person, they just cancel the booking and they send a new one.
So right now their matching criteria is based on the walker's availability and the distance from the dog, which is fine because it kind of speeds up the process. But where this really misses out the point is, what if the walker is not suited to the personality of the dog, or what if the dog just outright just hates the walker that's coming to them? So that's where there's a loophole between trusting the service enough to kind of, relinquish the control that actually users have. So changing the matching criteria just from distance and availability to more of, is this the right person for your dog based on their needs and behavior and personality is what we are trying to suggest here.
So you are challenging the business model a little bit, and you're basing that on research.
Yeah.
Are they wrong about saying that Rover should be the Uber for dogs? Is that like too much?
I would say yes, because from our research, dogs are someone's family, and dogs they can't speak for themselves or take care of themselves. So it's, similar to like that urban sitter, it's their child. And so I could get into an Uber and I know if that's a creep, I can jump out, hopefully. But if a walker comes into my house, you know, what we heard from dog owners is like, that is their child and they cannot be taken care for. So I think I don't know if I speak for the group, but I do feel that that marketing is wrong.
Yeah, and also that marketing kind of ties into, so when you actually Google WAG, Uber for dog walking is what WAG comes up with. Like that's their tagline kind of a thing. And like when I actually heard like, oh, Rover is calling themselves Uber for dog walking, I was like, are they just trying to like be apples to apples with their direct competitor by actually just marketing themselves the same way? Which, yeah, I agree to what she said. Like dogs cannot take charge of their decisions, and based on our research, they are like people's family. And that's why we even compared it to an indirect competition for urban sitter. We were looking at, if you can trust your kid with like a nanny, then they must be doing something right in building trust for that experience versus, like building that relationship with a dog.
So they should look at babysitting services.
They should, yeah.
Instead of Uber.
But
because
also-
it is a person.
Yeah.
Right?
But also I think some of the smaller local businesses are really doing some really good things in terms of their vetting process with their dog walkers. So it is like the non-direct competitors, but also some of the smaller local businesses where we heard, oh, I use them because they're in my neighborhood or because they're small, or, these sorts of sentiments that are kind of related to community and network.
So I would say that the business model does serve a need that is out there. So with the browse experience, that requires a lot of time from the users because they have to go through, they're scouring through pages of different sitters, they're reaching out to the sitters saying, hey, are you available to watch my dog? There's a lot of back and forth. So I understand where Rover was trying to go with the assignment model, but I think not going to the full opposite end of that spectrum where the user is not given any choice is not the right thing. I think that there needs to be some level of some choice for users.
The reason I asked the question about which of these ideas do you think would be hardest for them to accept, it doesn't mean don't proceed. It just means no, you're going to face resistance. Have your arguments ready, and even admit this next thing we're going to tell you about. It's gonna, could ruffle some feathers, and that's still fine. They've come to you looking for interesting ideas, but I also think kind of the counterbalance to that is, let them know you recognize this is a big deal that you're throwing out there for them. You all did a really excellent job. I think that it's hard to get 5 people to coalesce and make a coherent story, but I think you really did a great job with it. So I applaud
Well
you.
done. I think you're standing there looking at the post-it notes and thinking and talking, and watched you from the beginning, and you just grew up. Yeah, and now you're strategic with numbers. Doesn't that feel good to have that in your pocket? Like when somebody argues with you, let me check the data.
I think it just made more sense to us after we actually started looking at the data
Yes.
and then looking at our solution and coherence to each other.
Yeah.
We're that's why we're doing this.
Well, see,
and that's what we need to talk about.
Yeah.
See, and I liked it when all the interviews started coming up, and I was
Yes.
starting to see all the
Yeah.
patterns. Oh, and then we have the numbers to back it up. And
Yeah, it worked, right?
Yeah.
And you were a little bit unsure at the beginning of the class, and then you kind of just went with the flow there. You just clicked.
Good job.
Good job. So proud of you.
Thank you.
It's been fun.